Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really thrilled today to have on as a guest on Business and Life Insights, Tina Greenbaum. But Tina is a person who has helped a lot of people get out of their own way and really master situations that are challenging. And
Thank you so much for having me. So it's been a little hard to kind of put a name to exactly who I am or what I do, but my background is clinical. As a clinical psychotherapist, I'm a social worker by training. I also am coachy. So people say, "Are you a coach?" Well, I coach, but my training is a little different or inclusive of coaching. So we came up with this name, a science mind therapist or a mind science therapist. I thought it was kind of fun, but basically my interest is in helping people, helping actually at this point, really kind of working with leaders and teams of people in leadership who really want to master the inner game and the outer game. So in other words, dealing with conflict, inner conflict, outer conflict. Once we sort of know ourselves really well, then we can become very masterful in terms of the leadership that we want to be able to do. And so I created this program called Mastery Under Pressure. And from that has evolved the conflict resolution, really kind of looking at it in a bigger picture. So I don't know if that kind of explains it, but we'll find out more.
yeah, definitely find out more. So you worked in clinical situations, but you also, there's a holistic mindset that you have when you're working with your clients. And can you walk us through some of the typical situations that they're
Sure.
facing that you're helping them overcome?
Sure. So, as we were talking just before this, I just got off, I did a webinar this morning for the industry of business recovery. So I didn't really know what that was, or business continuity, but it's actually people who have to do all the preparation in case that there is an emergency, in our company, or what would happen if right now we're right as we're talking, Milton is kind of bearing down on in Florida. What will happen? And so these people are under a lot of pressure all the time and always on call. It's sort of like the emergency team that's got to be ready to go. And so they do a lot of preparation, but frequently it's a lot of head work. It's kind of what would happen if, and they have plans, and big companies have plans. But what happens actually when you're in the heat of the moment? So we can plan and plan and plan, but if we don't prepare our body mind system to be able to manage an emergency with finesse and calmness, is that other people can follow us, then we're not really good to anybody, because the first thing that goes when we get under stress is our thinking, our ability to think clearly. And that's where the neuroscience kind of comes in, really understanding what's happening in the body when we're getting ready for fight flight. The body goes into the sympathetic nervous system, which is the one that kind of sends all the blood to the heart so that we can get ready, to run or to handle whatever kind of emergency comes on. At the same time, when that happens, we're pretty much on automatic, and that ability to think clearly is gone. The brain that part of the brain shuts down, this prefrontal cortex. It's called our executive functioning. And this is the part that we need in an emergency. So,
You explain that so well. I have a really great understanding. But that is something that doesn't necessarily serve us when we are under pressure.
well, it does serve us if we're running away from tigers and bears and the way that we were designed. Because when you think about it, in the wild, the animals have three different options. They will either fight, or they will run, or they will freeze. And each one of us sort of has our own propensity towards one of those sort of ways of handling that kind of emergency. Some of us are very good in an emergency. I happen to be really, really good. I can stay really calm because I can see what's happening. But afterwards, like, nobody escapes. afterwards the mind starts to play it over and over. And how did that happen? What did I do? So our systems have a whole way of managing that. And then what happens to animals in the wild is when the danger is over, they go back to that parasympathetic nervous system. They don't obsess over it like we do. And that's where it becomes really unhealthy for us, because when we're in a chronic state of stress, the body is always working hard, the adrenaline is always pumping, and we really can't rest.
Right. So, yeah, thanks for the clarification too. Yes, it has an adaptive purpose, that is the fight or flight. But then you're alluding to it persisting in us so that it becomes a negative or a debilitating.
Chronic
Mhm.
stress. That's where adrenal stress comes from. So if we're in a chronic state of stress, the adrenaline is constantly pouring through our brain and pouring through our body. And so, I go like this, the tightness, the muscles tighten, and then we become vulnerable to any kind of stress related illnesses. Again, we all have our vulnerability. Some people are in your back, some people it'll be your heart, some people it'll be through cancer, whatever your body's propensity is, or kind of weakness or vulnerability, that's where it's going to show up.
Oh, I'm just curious, was there something in your life that pulled you in this direction that you could share with us?
Sure. So I've been kind of thinking about that a lot as we've been talking a lot about conflict and what's going on in the world, and how did I get to be so interested in this? And the truth is, my mother was a peacemaker. My mother couldn't stand conflict in our household. There were three of us, three children, and my father, who could go silent for days. And he just didn't ever want to get on his bad side. So that whenever there was too much tension, she would call a family meeting. She would call it a family meeting. We all hated them, but we had to sit down. And my father used to sit with his newspaper in front of him, put your paper down, talk to your kids, talk to your kids. And so we learned we could not leave until we talked, until we shared with what was happening and what was going on, and that the air was cleared. I always say I always used to run away from those meetings afterwards and crying because people would tell me things that I didn't want to hear. But what I did learn really, really early on was how to have difficult conversations, how not to avoid the things that were bothering us. Again, my mother would talk to everybody in the family. This one wasn't talking to this one, that one wasn't talking, but she would talk to everybody. So that became a belief, just a should. Raising my own children, I have three children, and I would do the same thing in terms of family meetings. And so that part of the problem solving, kind of listening to people, and again through my training in terms of a lot of communication training and therapeutic training, and how we phrase sentences and how we listen, and I could listen in 2 seconds and I can see where something, it doesn't even have to be said. Sometimes I could just pick up the energy of where something is going, and I know it's going south, or I know if so and so says this, then that's going to happen. Or I can tell when people have done personal growth work just by their language and how they speak. And so raising that level of awareness and consciousness has been a big part of my life. The other part of it, the mastering under pressure part, honestly did come from my dad, who was a great athlete. He loved sports and he loved to compete. And I love sports and I like to get his approval. And so, at summer camp, I would run and swim as hard as I could so that he would be proud of me. But that instilled in me this sense of, I want to be good at what I do. So how do we do this? Mm-hmm. And that really led me into the mind-body connection and the neuroscience, which when I started wasn't even a term. Nobody was even talking about brain scans and kind of learning pathways and building new neuro pathways. But through my nose, and I did a TEDx talk 2 years ago, and I said I would talk to these young women and I would say, I hear you, but I don't feel you. And somehow or other, if I don't feel you, you're not going to change. But at that time, I really didn't know how to do it. And then I do tell a story in my TEDx talk about I lost my parents in a car accident, and when I was 42.
Wow.
And that level of pain in my heart and, for years, but I had never really experienced at that level. And so I had this like rock in my heart. It was just like this, couldn't breathe it away, couldn't do anything. And then one night I was in such pain. I just put my hand on my heart and I just bawled. I mean, I cried. And then at some point that rock released. I said, oh,
Wow.
that's where we hold the grief, and it was, this rock of energy. And then as I went into the pain, it released over time. And that really changed my work. And
What an insightful experience that you yourself recognized that this was how you could help release the stress, the pain, the anguish
yes,
inside of yourself.
yes.
And I love the development of your sensitivity to people in their communication, bottling it up versus sharing it and dealing with it openly,
Yes.
a safe environment. So many of us grew up, I'm one of them, grew up in families where if there were any friction, areas of friction, you just hope that it would pass. Didn't really
Right.
deal with it. And
Right.
so consequently, I guess I have an inability to deal with confrontation.
Well, let's just say rather than an inability,
Okay.
let's put it in, you haven't learned how to do that. It's not an inability. It's not like you're not capable.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. Good point.
Right.
Nice distinction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I say now that, and I say this all over the place, good mental health is not a natural sport. It's a learned sport. Okay. So all the skills, and that's really kind of my passion. That's kind of why I do what I do, because exactly for what you just said, you are the perfect example of saying, I can't do this. Well, the only reason you can't do it is because nobody taught you how to do it. But we get stuck in this belief system dialogue, that this is who I am. It's always going to be this way. I can never change. It's so not true. If people couldn't change, I'd be out of a job. Truly.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm around a lot of people where confrontation is very uncomfortable,
Yes.
and
I
that
didn't
prevents.
say it was comfortable. Okay. But when you have the skill of how to manage it and how to, again, it comes back to this round robin. Okay. I know myself. I have the skill. I've practiced it. I'm going to try it out on somebody that's safe.
Yes, yes.
Right? Somebody that's safe. Let's see how it goes. And then once I start to have a little bit of success, confidence, the way that I understand it in my world, is built on little successes. So if I don't try it, then I have no idea. I can't possibly be confident in something that I haven't done before.
That's
I
right.
can imagine it, I could think about it, but until I actually do it and own it, that's why public speaking is so scary for people, because it's real. It's not like you could take this thing and edit it and go and do it again.
It's
So
there.
how do we build confidence for things that are scary, that are out of our comfort zone? We do it in increments. There's a wonderful law that says, it's called the law of accommodation. If I ask of myself a little bit more than I'm comfortable with every day, the body mind accommodates to the new level.
So that's the stretching.
That's right. That's exactly it. Just out of our comfort zone, not so big that puts us into a huge stress response, right? And then I can't think, I can't do it.
So just a little bit of some managed stress.
That's right. Because if we don't ask anything of ourselves, we don't grow. And there's again another wonderful energy kind of thing. And they talk a lot about this in business. If we're not growing, we're dying.
Yes,
We don't stand still.
that's right. And that's true in a lot of areas. Can you bring up some analogies in sports? Since you're a sports lover.
Oh, for sure. I love to play tennis.
Awesome.
I am not a fabulous tennis player, and I certainly cannot run really fast. I was never really a fast runner. That was kind of one of my problems, becoming a better athlete than I was capable of. But as I've gotten older, I just am not a very fast runner. So, but I have a very good mental game. So I know how to kind of not get down on myself, to move forward 1 point, 1 point, 1 point. And at the same time, I'm still learning and still growing.
Mhm.
And so if I play with players that are way over my level, I can't compete. It's not fun. It kind of takes the pleasure out of it. If
Mhm.
I play with people who are below my level, that's not fun either because they're not challenging me.
Right.
Right. So I love to play with people that are just a little bit better than me because that gets me to kind of play a better game. You know, we always say, oh, you make me a better partner. You make, you know, we want to be pulled up by people,
Right. Right.
right? The people that we surround ourselves with so that we grow into that next level.
That's a very healthy environment for everyone to
That's
do continuous growth. And everybody has, people have different areas of strengths and weakness that they need to grow in, or if they would like to continue growing. And so complementing yourself with people who have areas of growth that you aspire to
absolutely.
seems like a good way to be.
It's a wonderful way to be. And when I was married for a long time and I raised three children. And I was married for 34 years, and then I got divorced, and I moved from Long Island into Manhattan.
Wow.
And I had always, all the years that I was married, and I kept my work life pretty small. I had a private practice. I had 20 clients. I worked 20 hours a week. I never wanted to work more than that because I could raise my kids. I could go to soccer games. I could do all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But once they were gone and once I was on my own, I always dreamt about what would it look like if I actually lived my potential. That was the kind of the driving, and it still is, honestly. It's still the driving question, which is why I keep, working.
Stop.
I just love working with really big minds and people that have big impact on other people. And that's why I love working in the companies and I like working with leaders and because the things that I know, many of them haven't studied.
Yes.
They've gotten there through their own education and strategies and brilliance. But most people, I will say,
Mm-hmm.
I just again did this workshop today, and how many people have put years into the strategy of how you're going to take this education and bring it into your work life? Years. How many people have put years on the mental game? Not so many, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
So, and yet, this is what drives everything else.
The mental game. Let's dive into that a little bit then,
Yeah.
since we're at that point here. How do we work mentally? And
Well, it's kind of it's knowing yourself, how you react, how you respond,
Mhm.
and working and training with somebody like me or with my credentials. It just obviously there's many teachers and people that are helpers, but you want to work with somebody who has done the work,
Oh, yes.
right?
Yes.
Same thing. If I'm going to hire a coach, I want somebody that's where I want to be. I'm aspiring and you've already gotten there. And how are you going to get me there? That's the one thing. There's a lot of books and tapes and things, but the unconscious is very tricky. It's by its nature, it's unconscious. And we don't know how to shift it and change it. Then we're what I call a talking head. We're just only working with half a deck.
Half the deck.
Right?
Right.
And so the challenge is how do I get just the way I described when I was working with those young women? I hear you, but I don't feel you. How do I get in here? How do I get into the world of emotions? Because the emotions are our guide. So we have the thinking brain and then we have the emotional brain. Really, they call it the gut brain connection. That there's a vagus nerve, a vagal nerve that goes from the brain to the gut, which is why so many times our stomach gets upset or we get butterflies in our stomach or our heart starts racing really hard. So our body gives us information all the time. If we are not aware, number one, that it's actually talking to us until we're sick, or number two, it's talking to us, but what is it actually saying? Then again, we're still working with not everything that we have available to us. Okay. So let's just say, I'll give you an example. I have a client that I worked with a long time ago, and then she disappeared for a long time, and she's come back and she's starting to work with me again. And she comes from a very critical background, very harsh, very kind of a fire, lots of it. Right? Now, this woman is brilliant. Again, I've known her for a long time. She's in a very difficult profession, and at the same time, these commandments that she's been working under, that we call it an interject, that have interjected into her system. And it's not her mother and father talking. It is really, but it's her talking to her. No, you should do this. You should take care of that. I mean, so she's like wrapped up, like this tight cocoon, and just recently had a seizure.
Oh,
Never
no.
had a seizure in her life. Had a seizure.
Hmm.
So I love her dearly, and she's just a wonderful student because she's putting all this stuff as I'm just sort of the guide. She's putting it, oh, yeah, I see, I do. Oh, yeah. And now that the unconscious is becoming more conscious, she's more in charge. She can make better choices.
Yes. So the emotions are part of your subconscious.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. They operate, they're talking to us all the time. Stay away from this one. Don't go there. You don't feel like doing this. I know that's too stressful. I mean, all the time. And then we just don't pay attention.
No, we don't. And then there's another part of the subconscious, I think, that's hard for us to describe or get our arms around that are in addition to our emotions that maybe we can't articulate.
That's right.
There's an aspect of that in the subconscious.
Absolutely. Again, we start with a sensation in the body that will start to give you information, starts to awaken the cells. So, you want to play?
Okay, I'll play.
Okay. All right. So if we go back to that statement that you made, I don't have the ability for confrontation. Right? Okay.
Yes.
So if you just take a moment and see if you could find the sensation of that statement in your body.
Oh, that's a handy tool. Yeah, there's an uncomfortableness, there's an anxiety that
And where do you feel it?
Right in my chest.
Okay. In a split second,
So
you connect to that.
Identify it. I can pay more attention.
That's right. Okay, so now it's speaking to me. So I call it my 3 eyes, transformational work. So insight is the first piece. That little bit of insight that you just got, okay, can lead you to the next piece, which is if we were to work and on the skills that you need in order to be able to say, I'm actually pretty decent at confronting difficult situations and conversations. Right? There's new behaviors that you would have to learn. So we have to implement the new behaviors at the same time dealing with the emotion that's going to come up, okay, and the fear and all of that kind of stuff. But as you practice, you integrate it. And it's just like, I don't really feel like talking to that person, but I feel like I absolutely need to do that. Because if I don't, consequence is XYZ. Do I want that consequence?
Right. So being courageous and acting
in spite of
anxiety.
Right. But again, you have to be able to manage the anxiety so that you can actually do this, so that the anxiety doesn't take over.
Right.
And that's where the breathing comes in and just other mind body kinds of skills, so that you become very masterful at this. It's a system.
Yeah, already I'm breathing more comfortably.
Okay.
It's just identifying and realizing my own physiology is just something, a new relationship, I think, that I've developed with it.
Yes.
And you help people recognize, identify it, relate to it, use it, and turn it around possibly sometimes, or
Of course. That's the goal. And again, if you take this into groups and teams of people, and you have everybody sort of trained in the same way. Think of the military, what they do in the military. You walk in there and you have people from all different walks of life, and they train you into a system so that you can actually function in high stress situations.
Oh, so did you take some of your system from
I never really kind of purposely took it from the military. I didn't make this stuff up.
Okay.
I just found teachers and trainings and things that I wanted to learn. And the way that I did this is really kind of somebody would be sitting in front of me, or I'd be working with a group of people, I've been working with a company, And it's like, how to do that. That's the next training I really need.
Oh, so
Yeah,
amazing. Because then you were able to put together your system, and we're going to get to this.
exactly.
And then so we're kind of leading up to it. I'm excited to find out all of the pillars that make up your system that you've actually intentionally put together because you saw the need.
Yes. Yes. So I studied athletes, performers, energy people, chakras. I've done a training. I did a training. It was called Integrated Kabbalistic Healing. It's a combination of the Jewish mystical path and energy systems. And I had a spiritual teacher and all kinds of, and then the science, and then the neuroscience, the brain science. And so, again, I just did this kind of through my intuition. What are the pieces that would take somebody from being, and as an example, my kids played, two of my kids played very competitive soccer.
Okay.
And my youngest one was really, really gifted, a gifted athlete, and his goal was to become a professional soccer player. He actually was capable of doing that, and then he got interested in theater and English and philosophy and went off into a different path. But
We can find him on stage now.
he's just getting his PhD in performance studies. So yes.
Congratulations.
But so I used to say to him, I used to say to the kids, can't teach you how to play soccer. You know how to kick. I'm not the soccer player, but I can teach you about how to manage yourself when you're in front of the goalpost. And you've got the penalty kick, and if you make it, the team wins, and if you don't make it, the team loses.
Right. That is a pressure situation.
Right. So it's really about, what do I do with my mind? Right.
Right.
And so, okay, so what are the things that we need to learn in order to be able to function and perform at that level? And again, so starting with athletes, I work with tennis players, again, working with great leaders and speakers and performers. I lived in New York City, so I worked with a lot of actors and dancers and performers. And now I'm out in California, and it's tech people and finance and bankers, but we're all people, right? So it starts with focus, being able to what it is that you want to perform. When I practiced for my TEDx talk, I had 13 pages of dialogue to memorize.
Wow.
And so again, there were parts of the day that I'm really good at that kind of focus. Don't ask me. I've never worked at night. I don't like to work at night. You don't want to pay me at night because my brain is just not there.
Oh, yes.
And so how do I focus? Where do I focus? When do I need this broad focus? So focus is a really big piece of this. So focus,
First,
how to change that nervous system in an instant from that high stress to
right.
a nice calm thing. So focus, relaxation, dealing with negative self-talk. How do I change this? I don't call it positive speaking. I call it productive thoughts. Do my thoughts produce something useful for me? So we've got the body, we've got the
Mind and body.
okay, and then visualization. How do I visualize what it is that I want to do? So before I do a big talk, or before I even get on something like this, or the talk that I did this morning, just before, my day's been really busy, but right before I got on here, I did a little 10-minute paraliminal meditation.
Oh, okay. So meditative
Right.
exercising.
Right. So I could recognize that where I want to be, visualizing it, preparing for it,
Yes.
so that when the actual event comes, I'm prepared. So visualization, and then dealing with fear, which is kind of what we touched on a little bit before.
Yes. And fear. That's one of the other elements of your model, your system.
Right. Yes. Focus, relaxation, dealing with negative self-talk, how to visualize and dealing with fear. And once we master this piece, then we start with the inner communication. I deal a lot with communication skills, teaching assertiveness training. It's kind of a little bit what we were talking about, how to speak so that somebody actually can listen, that they can hear what it is that you have to say, so that the likelihood that you're going to be heard is 50% rather than 0. Yeah. So all those communication skills, how to take this person, how to manage. I did I have a little workshop I did. It was called How to Be a Confident Negotiator,
Oh, yes.
right?
And what are some of them, now that we're speaking about it? Do you mind delving into that a
No,
little?
so again, it's the same thing as being able to manage what's happening inside so that I can hold my own and not give away the bank
Mm.
just because I'm feeling anxious. And it's the same skills. It's being able to speak in a way that somebody can hear you, watching your body language,
Right.
being prepared, having a system for, excuse me, knowing before you start a negotiation, what's your bottom line? When are you going to walk away? What can you give? So, but the part that my part of it is really being able to manage this body mind
In the moment.
in the moment. Exactly.
I know there's people can walk into a negotiation, a really high level negotiation situation, but they'll kind of set up some parameters that they'll establish beforehand, kind of role play beforehand, and set themselves up for different scenarios that might develop.
My favorite story with how I wrote that program, I was asked by a women's business organization to do a talk, and I said, "Well, what do you think the women need the most?" And it was the negotiating skills that she picked. So I remember a story when I was just starting to really kind of own how many years I put into this, that I really have something to offer people. I'm really starting to own that I'm worth a little bit more than I was charging.
And so top to bottom, 360 degrees.
And so I was kicking myself into. I said, what did I do such that I gave myself away? Again, that same level of investigation. How did I do that? What did I do? What kind of got me there? And it was just the lack of confidence that he was actually going to pay me that kind of money and projecting all kinds of what he was going to feel. Or so once I understood
Right.
how I got myself there,
Yes.
but I didn't run away from it. I kicked myself for a little bit, but I didn't kick myself for long. I was really kind of like, what happened here? Then I could start to correct it. And the next time somebody asked me, I was very clear.
Yes, yes, you knew. You learned your lesson, or you gained some insight about yourself and
Yes.
did improve for the
Yes.
next.
And that's really the whole 9 yards now is how much time are you willing to become a student of yourself?
Good point.
It's a matter of curiosity. And rather than getting down on yourself, it's like, how come? Or why?
Right. And the other side of that coin is that what is it costing? What price am I paying by
Exactly.
staying the way I am?
Exactly. And that's a big question. That's exactly a question. And so the definition that helps me to get there is the definition of mindfulness. And it's being aware in the present moment without judgment.
Oh, let's dive into that a little bit.
Well, once you add the judgment, then you're going down that nasty path.
Oh,
Oh, Tina, you're so stupid. I can't believe you did that. And how did you do that? And you just, you gave up an opportunity and you blah, 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 blah.
yeah.
Then I feel like crap and I haven't learned anything and I haven't grown any. And I've taken myself there as opposed to, God, Tina, what did you do? Okay. How did you get there? Right? Being kind to myself,
Mhm.
not judging that I'm stupid. I'm not stupid. It's just inexperienced and, trying something new and anxious and
Right.
fearful. And okay, so I could name all those things. And then I could go, now that I've named them, how do I overcome them?
Right. So I'm hearing some self-talk there.
A lot of self-talk
Oh,
all the time, all day long, all day long. How are you feeling now? What do you feel like doing? You feel like going out for a walk? Yeah, I need the fresh air. You
mhm.
know, now it's time to to lift weights. I don't really feel like doing that, but I'm going to do that because I like the way. So
Yes, yes. So it sounds like a very healthy conversation.
yeah. So my whole point is that if you run away from yourself and you move too far away from yourself because you're so busy, you're just running on fumes and you don't really understand, what's motivating you, where are you going, why are you doing this, who are you hanging out with, all of that stuff.
Right. So there is self-talk that's happening. We're just not articulating it.
Called productive self-talk.
Productive self-talk. There's a mind shift happening here.
Good. That's the goal.
Wow.
Yes.
Could you talk some more about, so we've covered your family and celebrities or athletes you've worked with, and anybody in any other industries or professions that you've helped? And
Well, actually, I lived in DC, so I lived in Washington. A lot of lawyers. Again, when I lived in New York, it was much more, a lot more creatives, musicians, dancers, performers, a lot of bankers, financial people, Wall Street. As I said, out here, it's mostly tech. Now, again, I haven't lived in the middle of the country, so
is that
I've
on
lived
your bucket list?
right from coast to coast. No, visiting, yes, I love the water.
Yeah. Oh,
That one coast to the other, I'm really a water rat.
mm,
And but what I have discovered over time, it's no matter who it is, no matter how successful they are, no
mm,
matter how grand their lives, they all got hit by COVID.
mm,
Nobody escaped.
mm.
Nobody escapes the human condition.
No,
And
right.
so that's why I love working again with big minds, people that are really creative and they're also people. You know, they've got their own foibles and their own issues, and so in order to be a whole person and really be the great leader that you can be, the great business person, the great parent, the great, I think it's a matter of responsibility to everybody that you serve and you care for.
Hmm.
Be your best self. God knows we need so much help.
No, yes, and if they allow themselves this introspection, that's so important. I believe myself that everyone has a gift to give to the world, but sometimes it's not, they need the tools to learn how to share their gift.
Absolutely.
And maybe this is, and obviously, I think the work that you do with people, it helps them express the gift that they are more powerfully, I think.
Absolutely. You know, we're right now again in the timing that we're filming this, you know, in the middle of the Gaza, Israeli, Ukraine, and there was a headline yesterday that what we have perpetrated is a circle of hate.
Yes,
That's kind of what's going on in this world right now,
it's ugly.
and it does not have to be that way. And that's really my mission. Whether whoever I work with, whatever group, whatever dignitary, whatever,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be this way.
No, give them the tools and the realization to negotiate and work on things without letting the emotions.
Well, I think the other thing that's really important for people to kind of hear, the most basic thing that we want as human beings is to be heard. It's the most basic need,
I can agree with that.
right? And
Hmm.
when we don't feel we're heard,
Oh, we can throw a tantrum.
all the other stuff that is piling on top and people hating each other and killing each other. And it's just, yeah,
Wow. Yeah, you have a high purpose and it's very worthwhile, worthy purpose.
thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So I didn't see us going that way, but now that you've explained things along the way, I can see why it's the natural end goal for what you're doing. The communication skills, first of all, people being able to communicate with themselves with insights that you can help bring out and help them reestablish a relationship with themselves. And then once they've got that in hand, then they can also appreciate others in a different light.
That's right.
I think this is really powerful stuff, Tina.
I know. I love deep.
It's good. Deep is very good. Yes.
It's really kind of, for me, I never knew that common sense was a gift until I was about 30 years old.
Oh,
Really? It's just like people would say to me, how do you know that? It's like, I don't know, how do you not know it? It's like right in front of you, you know.
but
And that's why I feel a lot with so much that goes on in the world. It's like,
yeah.
you're going to bomb them. What do you really think is going to happen? They're going to bomb you back.
And they're
I may be oversimplifying things, but I actually don't think so.
no, no. It could be as simple as that. Common sense.
Yeah. People want to be heard. People want to feel they have autonomy in their lives. They want to. however it looks. And then I think the other part of it that's just to be appreciated is these are developmental stages. When you think of little children,
Mhm.
and how they fight, and it's mine, no, it's mine, no, it's mine, and
Mhm.
and and realize who you're dealing with and where they are in the level of evolution. There's a lot of cultures that, and it is complicated, but it's not, but it's simple.
Yeah, yeah, but it's simple. That's people want to be heard, starting with that. And as children, how often do we hear parents tell them to don't talk right now, or wait till you're talked to?
Oh my God, just that client that I was just telling you about, I mean, the way that she was talked to as a child, 4 years old, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that, and you should give, just,
No, it's right. Do this, do it this way.
that's it.
Yeah, there's not enough. Yeah, being heard, being appreciated is not valued.
You know, I used to say to my kids all the time, and I just actually said it last night, we were talking at dinner, that
Mhm.
golden rule,
Mhm.
it's still a golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Yes, that's right.
Treat others the way that you want to be treated.
Tell the golden rule. Yes. Well, think about what you want first, and recognize that whoever you're dealing with probably wants us the same thing. Appreciate it
That's right.
and,
Treated with respect.
and respect. Absolutely. I know this is
Right? Is
so
this rocket science or what? No, I don't know.
common sense. Yes. And this is the question: why do we not pay attention to common sense? What do you
Well, I think again, when you think about again as a clinician, in terms of child development and adult development and culture and developments and tribal, where are people coming from their own histories?
Mhm.
And so if it's a tribal environment, the individual is not really valued very much. It's the tribe, it's the group, it's the family, it's the this, it's the that. And so we as Americans, my ex-husband was from a Greek origin, and he couldn't really understand, why do I want to go to school? How much money are you spending? It's going to take away from the family. It's going to. My mother has said to me, she was first generation American.
Oh,
And she said this way before I got married. She said, he's too Victorian for you. You know, so I'm American, and at the same time, I think we Americans sometimes become too individualistic. The
mhm.
way that I can see it in my experience, and I have daughter-in-laws that are from different cultures, and in some way, shape, form, if some other anger, some other frustration, some other, it doesn't mean that you're selfish. It means that we got to fill this tank of gas. I got to nurture myself enough that I have enough to give. I used to think about Martin Luther King and Mother Teresa and all the great, and Jesus, and you know how did they give so much? They meditated a lot.
Oh, okay.
There was some, and plus they have gifts that most of us have not, in terms of spiritual gifts and psychic gifts and so on, but in some way, shape, form, they were nurtured. They
Mhm.
nurtured
You know,
themselves. And if caring for other people became that level of nurturing, then that's what they did.
there's a whole book that could be written about that.
I don't have all the answers. These are the ones that come to me, and a lot of good people coming together, and just we're a country of laws, and we have to vote.
Yes,
We vote our leaders in.
yes, we take that responsibility, not just for ourselves, but for those who come behind us, our children, and those who depend on us.
That's right.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, we've gone really deep here, Tina, and we covered the height and the depths, and there's probably a lot that we left out. I know there is a lot because we've only really scraped the surface here. And I want to know how people can, well, reach out to you and work with you.
Sure. So it's Tina at Mastering Under Pressure. That's my email.
Right. So I see the book on your desk,
I
on
have
your
my
computer.
book in the back. Everything is Mastering Under Pressure. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I am happy to kind of work with people on these issues of moving our culture forward, really.
So leaders who can have an impact in this direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have some work to do here.
Yes.
We have some work to do to get the word out that, yeah, that's because you have a beautiful way with people. And I felt very safe, but also that we weren't going to let me slide in any way, shape, or form. You gently reached out to me and nudged me.
Yep.
And I can see that's how you work. And and I think it's a beautiful way to be.
Thank
I
you.
think all of us can benefit from working with you and people who are in your industry, your colleagues. But I know I was introduced to you by someone I really respect, and she's also someone who made a big difference. And
Absolutely. Catherine Bell, she's
she was
just,
my very first guest.
yes.
She changed my life. And
Yes.
and
And Catherine and I are in a group. We've been in a women's group together for, I think, 5 or 6 years. We meet every Wednesday, 8 o'clock in the morning,
powerful women's group.
and just support each other through this journey
Wow. Yes,
of
very.
really having an impact and being able to help people because we work, if you work with leaders,
Yes,
they,
yes.
and the other
Thumbs
people, and
down.
they have kids and so on and so on.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yes, this is really a very worthwhile, very high goal that you're working to achieve, and I applaud you for that.
Thank
Very
you.
much admire what you're doing.
Honestly, it feels like a choiceless choice.
Okay, it's a responsibility. Yes, it has to be done. So who else?
Right.
So you've taken this responsibility, and and you've not run away from it, and that's a wonderful model to aspire to for me, someone who also wants to make a difference.
Absolutely.
My gosh, Tina, thank you so much for your beautiful message, for being the beautiful you.
Thank you now.
And are there any last things that you'd like to share with us?
No, I think we've covered a lot, a whole lot, but people ask me all the time if I did this from my TEDx talk, and it was when we get triggered, the body gets triggered before the mind. We talked about that, right? So the body gets triggered, so just stop, just like a movie, you know, the movie runs really quickly, just stop. Okay. And then you want to edit, you want to look up and down and, what's happening here so that you can reframe that feeling, just like we reframed the sentence that you gave us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
And we reframed it. And now we can respond. So it goes cut, reframe, respond. You get triggered, stop, take that breath, notice what's happening, and your thoughts and your feelings, and then choose your response rather than just.
Yeah, very powerful words. And thank you for that tool. It can be used right away.
Yes.
And those of you out in the audience there, do feel free to reach out to Tina. You've been introduced to her here. You can see how impressive she is as a human being, but also as someone who can make a difference through other people in this world.